There's a new king of AI coding tools, and its name is Claude Code. But 6 months ago, I was using Claude Code all wrong. I was basically treating it like ChatGPT with the save button, typing in vague prompts and just hoping for the best. It was like buying a Ferrari, but never taking it out of first gear. Fast forward to today, and I'm a Claude Code power user. I can run multiple instances of Claude Code at the same time and work on a week's worth of features in just a few hours. See how each Claude Code instance is working on different app feature, completely independent from the other. And yes, Claude Code will merge all the changes together at the end. In this video, I'm going to save you 6 months of pain by sharing 36 specific lessons about how to get the most out of Claude Code. These lessons are going to be organized into 3 clear levels: beginner, intermediate, and master. In level 1, the beginner section, we're going to cover Claude Code foundations. We'll cover installation and setup, essential concepts and commands, and how to use things like the Claude.md file to put you ahead of 99% of beginners. In level 2, the intermediate section, we're going to look at workflow enhancements. We'll cover Claude's planning mode, using Claude for research and documentation, and using Claude Code to automatically answer issues and create PRs in GitHub. And finally, level 3, the master section, we're going to look at advanced techniques. We'll cover things like using multiple Claude codes at the same time to work on multiple different features, custom commands and custom subagents, and using Claude Code with MCP servers. So whether you're a Claude Code beginner or power user like me, I can guarantee that you're going to learn something from this video that's going to help you cook at a higher level with Claude Code. But before we dive in, I'm Avtar, and I teach people how to use AI coding tools, even if you're new to coding. So if you're trying to level up with AI coding tools, maybe it's for your job, maybe it's for a new business you're trying to start, maybe it's for a side project, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more videos about the best AI coding tools and how to get the most out of them. With that out the way, let's get into level 1, the foundations of Claude Code. All right, so if you're new to Claude Code or feel like you might be missing some basics, this section is for you. We're going to cover everything you need to get up and running with Claude Code, including things like installation and setup, basic commands, project configurations, and debugging. First up, installation. The way that you install Claude Code and the way that the majority of people use it is just on their local laptops or their local machines. You go to the Anthropic website, copy the command for Claude Code, and install it on your local machine using your terminal. It's quick, it's easy, and you can begin coding right away. Option 2, and this is great for using Claude Code for backend projects, is to install Claude Code on a remote server. Just log in to wherever the server is hosted, for example, AWS, DigitalOcean, or Hetzner, and install Claude Code just like you would things like Python or Node. A bonus of the remote server approach is that this allows you to code from anywhere. For example, you can use the Termius app on iOS to control Claude Code right from your phone. Tip number 3 is that you can use Claude Code inside other AI coding tools like Cursor, Windsurf, and IDEs like VS Code. This is great if you're already familiar with those tools or still getting comfortable with the terminal. To get started, navigate to the directory of your choice and type Claude in your terminal. You can also use the resume flag, that's -- resume, to continue any previous session. Tip number 4 is to use my favorite feature of Claude Code, and that's to-do lists. This is the thing that made Claude Code stand out for me among all the other AI coding tools at the time. It didn't just jump into writing code straight away. First, it created a to-do list. Now, this happens most of the time automatically, but you can also explicitly prompt Claude Code to use to-do lists in the prompt that you give it. The great thing about to-do lists is that as Claude works, it checks off items so that you can see what's happening and what's coming next, and it also enables Claude to work on big, complex tasks without getting stuck in loops or erasing past work. Next, let's look at some essential commands. First up is bash mode. Bash mode enables you to run bash commands inside Claude Code, so you don't have to exit out of it. Claude can also run bash commands itself, meaning it can do things like read and write files, search, and even handle git commands for you. For example, you can tell Claude to read all the files in a certain folder and use it for context for tasks it will do. Tip number 6 is to use Claude for instant documentation. Documentation doesn't have to be painful. Just ask Claude to explore and explain the architecture of an app and how it works, and save its output in a file called something like architecture.md. This is great when you're getting up to speed with a new project, or touching a project that you haven't worked on in a couple of weeks, or just documenting key things for you, your teammates, or even Claude to reference later. Tip number 8 is auto accept mode. Claude will usually prompt you for permissions to make changes. If you want to let Claude take the wheel, you can turn on auto accept mode by pressing Shift and Tab together. This enables Claude to make changes without asking each time. Tip number 9 is about model switching. Now, Claude Code allows you to choose from a variety of Anthropic models to power its AI coding sessions. The /model command allows you to choose which model to use. You can use Opus, which is the most powerful model when you need deeper analysis or want the most powerful coding capabilities for your toughest challenges. And you can use Sonnet for routine tasks, so if you just want to save tokens or get faster responses. I usually keep it at the default mode, which is using Opus until you've hit 50% of your usage limits for that month. But my new favorite is actually the Opus plan mode, which is where it uses Opus, the more powerful model, to plan, and Sonnet, the more cost-efficient model, to actually write the code and do the execution. It's something I recommend you play around with and see which model works best for your use case. Next up, don't be afraid to interrupt Claude. The escape key is your friend. You can press the escape key once to interrupt Claude and twice to go back to a previous prompt in your session. Don't hesitate to interrupt Claude if you see it heading in the wrong direction. It's much better to redirect early than to waste precious tokens. Next up in the beginner section, let's talk about fixing your mistakes or debugging with Claude Code. It's actually much simpler than you think. First up is the screenshot method. Now, Claude Code can take images as input. So if you run into any UI issues or any bugs in your application, you can actually take screenshots and give them to Claude Code as inputs for your prompts. This allows Claude to see all the context, and it usually can tell exactly what went wrong, or it allows it to pinpoint exactly where in the UI you want to make a particular fix. Now, you can also use the image input for other things like giving it UI designs and diagrams as well, but I think the most common usage is for debugging. The next level of debugging is letting Claude write your tests for you. This is as simple as just asking Claude to write tests for a particular feature or write tests for the new onboarding flow. Just make sure to focus on general end-to-end tests rather than implementation-specific ones. And we can take this further with tip number 13, which is using Claude Code for test-driven development, or TDD. Now, test-driven development is a really popular software engineering philosophy, but when it comes to Claude Code, essentially what this means is asking Claude to first write tests for a given feature and then to implement it. This helps Claude catch issues early, and it gives it a bit of structure to work with, which can lead to better outputs. Next up is project configuration, and that brings us to what I think is the most important thing in this video, which is the Claude.md file. You can think of the Claude.md file as your project's memory. It's a file that gets added to context every single time Claude Code does any task, and it's all the information that you want to give Claude Code to work on your project your way. Here's some snippets of my Claude.md file for an iOS app that I'm working on. It consists of things like Git workflows and best practices, project and architecture overviews, build commands and best practices for things like testing and debugging, and analytics and documentation how-tos. Now, the great thing about putting these in the Claude.md file is that Claude will follow these rules automatically. It'll create proper branches, commit regularly, and never accidentally push to main. It'll follow my preferences for documenting its work and always add tests and analytics when building out new features. This ability to follow complex rules and tailor both workflows and output has made Claude my favorite AI coding tool, outshining the likes of Cursor and Replit. Now, before you worry that you have to manually write your Claude.md file, you can actually just ask Claude to write it for you. That's going to be a recurring theme in this video, using Claude Code to help you use Claude Code better. What this means in this case is asking Claude to update the Claude.md file as you add specific features to your project or as you discover preferences that you want to make Claude respect. Tip number 15 is the message queue. Now, the message queue is a real game changer because it means that you don't have to wait for Claude to finish its current task before you give it input. You can just type a message while Claude is working, and it gets added to the message queue, and Claude will act on it once it's finished with the current task. Just add tasks as you think of them, and Claude will work through them all in order. And that brings us to tip number 16, which is the final tip in our beginner section. And that is for long prompts, you can actually put your prompt in a Markdown file and feed it to Claude by referencing that file in the prompt using the @ symbol. This is much cleaner than trying to type everything in the terminal, and it's great if you have long prompts, if you want to think things through before you give it to Claude. Now that brings us to the end of the foundation section. That gives you everything you need in order to get started with Claude Code. Let's take it up a notch to the intermediate section where we're going to look at Claude Code workflow enhancements. Now that you're comfortable with the basics, it's time for level 2 or the intermediate section, and that's about working smarter, not harder. I'm going to share with you the enhanced workflows that I use in Claude Code to plan better, research faster, and integrate with my existing GitHub workflows. First up is planning and thinking features that are going to help you level up and enable Claude Code to tackle your toughest problems. Tip number 17 is to use planning mode. Now, most of the time, you don't just want to jump straight into writing code. Oftentimes, you want to plan and strategize before you start implementing. To do this, use the planning mode on Claude Code and ask it to plan before it starts working on a new feature. Just hit Tab and Shift until you see the plan-only mode, and that will ensure that Claude gives you a plan to review before any code is written. I use the planning mode all the time for architecture decisions or to force Claude to think through how to fix gnarly bugs before it takes action. When it comes to planning, a hidden setting to make use of is the Opus plan mode. This means that you can use Opus for planning and Sonnet for implementation just by selecting the /model command. This is a good default to ensure that you get the most powerful model for planning, but the cheaper model for implementation. Another underrated feature when it comes to planning is to use subagents to create multiple plans for how to do, let's say, implementing a given feature or to fix a certain bug, and let you or Claude pick the best one. Look out for more on planning and parallel subagents in the advanced section of the video. Next up, did you know that you can control how much Claude thinks when it's working? Meet the think keywords. These allow you to tell Claude how much time to spend thinking when you're working on tough problems. There's actually 3 think keywords. There's the basic think, there's think hard for deeper analysis, and for maximum thinking power, use the keyword ultra think. Just include the appropriate thinking keyword in your prompt, and it will tell Claude to use more of its thinking budget. Now imagine you're prompting Claude to add a new feature, and you're using the think hard keyword in your prompt. But you're also using planning mode, and you're saving that output into a Markdown file for future reference. That's just one example of combining tips that we've seen in this video into a powerful workflow for vibe coding. The next unlock for me was that I could use Claude Code for more than just code. My favorite example of this is research. Claude has a web search and web fetch tool that enables it to search the web and read website content and take action on it. This means that you can use Claude Code to research small things like how to use a Stripe API, or ask it to do larger research tasks like put together a report on the best auth tool to use in your application that also has pre-built login components. It's that powerful. This saves you a ton of time and allows you to take into account more of your app's context as you add tools and features. Another hidden feature when it comes to research is that Claude Code can read PDFs. This means that it can combine information that you have in PDF files with information that it finds in its web searches. My favorite example of how to use this feature is feeding Claude PDFs of ChatGPT deep research reports so that it can reference those in its research phase. Beyond research, Claude Code is great for document generation. This is important because I've noticed that you need to think like a product manager and give Claude Code all the context that it needs in order to do its job well. The good news is that you don't have to write all of these product specs by yourself. You can actually leverage Claude to generate artifacts that both you and Claude reference later. I use Claude to generate things like product requirement docs or PRDs for features, user experience guides, API documentation, and technical design docs. I find these docs to be more useful than the ones made in ChatGPT because they take into account more of the actual structure of my application and leverage all the context of my project for better results. Tip number 26 is something that I use to stay organized in the projects that I build, and that's using Claude Code for automatic change tracking. This is about leveraging Claude Code for things like creating changelogs for it to reference later, documenting the most up-to-date features of your app for use on your website, or making things like decision docs, which outlines why you made a particular decision. I highly recommend leveraging Claude Code for keeping track of how your project evolves over time. Your future self and your future Claude Code agents will thank you. Next up is a Claude Code GitHub integration. Claude Code is fantastic for teams thanks to its deep integration with GitHub Actions. Now, you may remember how you can use Claude Code to handle Git commands for you as you develop features. But this Claude Code and GitHub Actions integration takes it to the next level. First, run the /install gh actions from the Claude Code menu. And once you've set that up, you can tag Claude Code in issues and pull requests and ask it to fix it. And Claude Code will run using GitHub Actions and submit a PR or a fix without needing to run on your local or your remote machine. Claude can even review PRs automatically as they come in. Finally, in this intermediate section, I want to talk about the mindset that helps me get the most out of working with Claude Code. For best results with working with Claude Code, you need to think like a product manager. And this means two specific things. Firstly, it means giving Claude lots of clear, relevant context and constraints when it comes to achieving your goals. Secondly, and probably most importantly, it means letting go of reviewing the code yourself or needing to understand everything that Claude has implemented and working to verify Claude's outputs at higher levels of abstraction. What this means is that you don't need to understand every line of code outputted by Claude. Can you verify that the app experience is what you want? Can you verify that the tests pass? Can you verify that the app works as intended? That's what matters. This approach literally changed how I build with AI coding tools, and it's a mindset shift that I had to make, similar to what I've experienced in real life when I had to work and manage smart technical people on my team at previous jobs that I've held. Now, this brings us to the end of level 2, the end of the intermediate section of Claude Code. I'm sure you're seeing just how powerful Claude Code can be, and are probably super excited to use it in your own projects. But hold up, because we have more to learn in level 3, and that's the master section where we're going to go through advanced techniques. Level 3 is where you become a Claude Code master by leveraging advanced techniques that allow you to feel the full power of Claude Code. We'll cover things like using multiple instances of Claude Code to develop multiple features at the same time, custom commands, custom subagents, and using Claude Code with MCP servers. First up, let's talk about working in parallel or using multiple Claude codes at the same time. For those of you keeping count, this is tip 29, and it's using parallel subagents for planning and exploration. This allows Claude to explore multiple solutions simultaneously, and then you pick the best one. It's like having a team brainstorming session. All you need to do is ask Claude to plan and use parallel subagents to explore solutions. Parallel subagents are great if you want to explore how to add complex features to your app, or if you want to fix gnarly bugs or problems. Now, remember at the start of this video where I used 3 Claude Code instances to work on 3 features at the same time? I'm going to show you how to do that using the power of Claude Code and Git worktrees. Git worktrees give you isolation that enables multiple Claude agents to work on your project without conflicts. Just create a hidden folder in your project, I called mine .trees, and use the git add commands to create a work tree for each different feature or thread that you want to work on. Once the work trees are created, you can spin up a terminal session for each work tree and then run Claude Code in each. Here's me doing that in Cursor, but you can also do it in your terminal. This gives you a beautiful, clean Git history that's easy to understand and review. Using Claude Code and Git worktrees allows you to work on multiple features at the same time on the same code base without running into issues down the line. When you're done, just ask Claude Code to merge each of these worktrees in your folder together and fix any conflicts. And boom, thanks to Claude Code and using multiple Claude Code instances and Git worktrees, you can have a week's worth of development done in just a few minutes. Now that's how to use Claude Code in parallel. Next up is the advanced customization section, and the next tip is using custom commands. They're basically like having prompting shortcuts for Claude Code to act on repetitive tasks versus typing out the same long prompts over and over again. Now, the easiest way to make custom /commands is just to ask Claude to do it for you. But if you want to do it manually, here's how to set up custom commands yourself. create a commands folder in the .claude folder in your working directory. Then add a Markdown file with the name of your command, for example, changelog.md. Your command file should have a description of what the command does, the list of allowed tools, usually things like bash, read, and write, and the actual command prompts, which is what you want the command to do. Command prompts can go beyond just plain text and include things like arguments for dynamic input, bash commands, and things like file references. A pro tip here is that custom commands can be project specific, or they can apply to all your Claude Code projects, and this is called a personal command. One more thing to note here is that custom commands don't automatically get added to context. So if you want something to always be added to context, for example, information about your application, put these in the Claude.md file that always gets added to context. Custom commands don't. This brings us to tip 34, which is using specialized subagents. Just like custom commands, you can create custom subagents. These are specialized AI assistants with custom prompts and tool permissions that can handle specific tasks autonomously. And just like custom commands, they can be project specific or they can be personal and apply to all projects. For example, you may want to create custom or specialized subagents for things like user experience design, API design, security review, running tests, or database administration, and other domain-specific tasks. Each subagent has specific tools that it can access and a domain-specific purpose reflected in its system prompt. The easiest way to create custom subagents is to use the /agents command in Claude Code. This is another example of using Claude Code to help you use Claude Code better. There's a wizard that walks you through setting up a new agent, and this is much easier than setting it up yourself because Claude does a heavy lifting for you. In this example, I'm setting up an agent to do mixed panel analytics, and here's what's going on under the hood. Each agent has a Markdown file which specifies its agent type, usage, accessible tools, and system prompts, which gives you an overview of what the agent does. You can view all the agents that you've created with the /agents command. Once you've created your subagents, Claude will automatically know that they exist. It'll understand what it's used for based on what's in the usage field description in your agent Markdown file, and it'll automatically delegate tasks to your subagent when relevant. Claude will also use these subagents if you explicitly ask for them in your prompt. So for example, you could say, hey, use the test runner subagent in order to run these tests, or use the database administration agent to make sure that the queries are correct for this new feature. Now, the final thing in this advanced section is using Claude Code with MCP servers. Now, what happens when you want to extend Claude Code's capabilities to take actions in third-party tools like databases or tools like Figma or Canva? This is where Model Context Protocol, or MCP, comes in. Here are some ways that I like to use MCP servers with Claude Code. First up is database MCPs. These are great for doing direct database work. I've used the MongoDB MCP, the Postgres MCP server, as well as the Subagents MCP server for various database-related things in the apps that I've built. Next up is a Playwright MCP for browser automation. This is great because it allows Claude Code to actually visually see your application and your web UI, and it's great for things like testing and finding and fixing bugs. Finally, there's a Figma MCP, which is great for going from design to code. Now, there's many other MCP servers out there. I'm actually curious if there's a particular MCP server that you found most useful. Let me know in the comments, but those are just 3 that I like. These capabilities are incredibly powerful, and I think they'll become even more powerful as the MCP server ecosystem matures. So that brings us to the end of level 3. That's the master section of Claude Code. We've gone from beginner, where we've looked at the foundations, to intermediate, where we looked at enhanced workflows, to the master section, where we've covered advanced techniques for getting the most out of Claude Code. Congrats on making it this far in the video. But before we end off, let's talk about a very important thing with AI coding tools, and especially with Claude Code, and that's money. How much does Claude Code cost, and is it worth the money? Now, unfortunately, there's no free version of Claude Code, but there is 2 ways to access it. The first way is via one of the Claude paid plans, and there's 2 of them that you can choose from. The first one is a $20 a month pro plan. You can use this to get started or to play around with. And when you're serious about building, I'd recommend the max plan, which goes for either $100 or $200 a month. The max 5x plan gets you 5x higher rate limits than the pro plan for $100 a month. And the max 20x plan gets you 20x higher rate limits at $200 a month. This is the plan that I personally use, and I'd recommend it if you're serious about AI coding tools, but pick whatever plan fits your budget. The second way to use Claude Code is through the Anthropic API, but this is just ridiculously expensive, and unless you're part of a large company that will pay for the Anthropic API usage for you, I'd recommend picking a Claude Pro or Max plan that fits your budget and not looking back. Quick note, Anthropic announced that at the end of August, they're going to be imposing additional rate limits, and that's weekly rate limits on Claude Max users. I'm not quite sure how this is going to impact Claude users. I don't think the impact is going to be that big. I still think Claude is good value for the money, but we'll have to see what these rate limits do come the end of August. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope it helped demystify Claude Code and made you super excited to build and unleash your creativity with Claude Code by your side. If you learned something from this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you thought there was a feature that was really cool, or maybe something that I didn't cover in this video, it could be about Claude Code, it could be about AI coding in general, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.